Well, needless to say, I think we're gonna be needing a lot of these. Greetings, sirs and madams of PlayStation Vita Island. I am James of PS Vita at 2 AM. Perhaps you've heard of me? No? Really? Oh. And if you're new here and love everything PlayStation Vita, don't forget to subscribe. I, for one, have always been a big fan of what-ifs. Like, what if my commentary was actually funny? Not really. And today we are going to be talking about that very subject. That being, what if the PlayStation Vita was actually supported by Sony? What if it was a financial success? What if it was not discontinued last year? What games could we have expected to be released on it? And with that being said, what games would you yourselves have liked to have seen on this handheld? Let me know down in the comments below. Before I begin, I just wanted to lay down a few ground rules here, and that is, these are games that, in my personal opinion, I feel would have had a chance of actually being on the handheld had things had turned out differently. Taking in the support Sony would have given and the hardware limitations of the device. We cool on that? Cool. Now grab your tissue papers and reminisce with me of what could have been. Here's the first game, Blade Strangers. Back in its day, the PlayStation Vita was no slouch to getting some pretty big 3D and 2D fighters. And with this title being from Nicholas, who in fact have done other games on the PlayStation Vita, I think our chances of getting this 2D fighter would have been very high. The game features many characters from the Nicholas franchises coming all together for one big 2D fighter, a crossover game, if you will. With beautiful 2D hand-drawn animation and very nice animated cutscenes, this is one I feel would have been really at home on our little handheld. Like seriously, this game is so beautiful. Ah, now we're talking. This is Valfaris, a title that was heavily anticipated to hopefully come out for the PlayStation Vita, but sadly never did. Which is a shame because much like with Blade Strangers, the people behind Valfaris had supported the handheld in the past. Except not this time. Why, Steel Mantis? Why? Set in a far corner of space, Valfaris is a heavy metal-influenced 2D action platformer and the next game from the team behind Unity Awards finalist Slain Back from Hell. Brutal combat, deadly enemies, stunning pixel art, savage soundtrack. Get ready to rip the galaxy a new wormhole. Sounds kinda stinky when they say it that way. And being that the Vita is so heavily influenced by many indie titles, I don't think I have to emphasize enough just how much this would have fit perfectly on it. But it's truly a shame that Valfaris just, Valfaris itself away from our hearts. Couldn't think of a better way to segue into the next game. And boy was that ever not it. Alright, now let's talk about Persona 3, a remaster. And I think many of you will see where I am coming from with this. Being that Persona 4 Golden was such a smash hit on the PlayStation Vita, and considering that it also was a remaster of the original PlayStation 2 version, I think it only makes sense that Atlus would have eventually given us a Persona 3 remaster. Maybe call it like, I don't know, something like Persona 3 Sapphire or something along those lines. Has to be something blue. Definitely something blue. Now, why am I saying that Persona 3 is such an important piece that we would have needed on this device? Especially if you remember that we already have Persona 3 Portable, which is available on the PlayStation Vita digital store. If you're a P3 fan, much like I am though, you'll know that we still don't have a definitive edition of this game. True, we have Persona 3 Fest and Persona 3 Portable, however, both games omitted and added different features from one another. Thus, we're still waiting for that one true sweet spot for the series. One that gives us the best of both of these games. Though I'm pretty positive it will happen eventually, just not on the PlayStation Vita, sadly. Yeah, there goes that tissue paper I was telling you about. Now let's talk about Umihara Kawase Fresh. Another title that, yeah, if you've been following Nicholas's track record, shouldn't come as a surprise. Because we did in fact get Sayonara Umihara Kawase. However you say it. Which was a 3D action platformer that took in realistic physics when it came to swinging from, your fishing line. Yeah, it was kind of weird. And now the people over at Nicalis have created a new entry into the series because there seems to be a little bit more interest in the franchise these days. In Umihara Kawase Fresh, Kawase carries a fishing lure with rubber band action. The lure can be used as a grappling hook to swing from platforms, as a winch to raise and lower herself while suspended, as a bungee cord to slingshot herself in any direction, and as a weapon to stun or defeat enemies. Pretty cool game if I do say so myself. And I do say so myself. Just a pity she was never able to swing into our hearts again. That's a little better of a segue than last one. I might be cheating a little bit on this next pick because this is a game that we were originally supposed to get on the PlayStation Vita, yet never did. How does a Bioshock game on it sound? Yeah, it could have been really great, but thus was never meant to be. What happened to it exactly? Well, I'll let IGN do the heartbreaking for me.
Ken Levine has opened up on his ill-fated Bioshock game for the PlayStation Vita, revealing on Twitter he wishes he could still make the game and elaborating on his original vision. In a candid stream of tweets, Levine reiterated that the fate of the game was out of his hands. Publisher 2K and Sony couldn't put a deal together when I last checked. They seemed way more optimistic about this back in 2011. Wish I could do it myself, he continued, but lawyers and all that. I still love my Vita. When a Twitter user asked Levine what kind of a game Levine envisioned, he said he was thinking of a Final Fantasy Tactics-style thing set in a pre-fall Rapture. This matches his original claim that the game would be unique and have its own voice in the franchise. Bioshock Vita was first teased at E3 2011 during Sony's press conference, when Levine referred to it as his pet project. In December 2012, it was revealed that the game was never even started. The project has since hung in dead space, and the closure of Irrational Games as we knew it seemed to be the final nail in its coffin.
Yeah, you heard that right. Supposedly it was never even started. Being that by the PlayStation Vita standards this would have been a highly ambitious game, would it have ended up suffering from the same issues that games such as Borderlands 2 did? Who's really to say, but I still think we can all agree that it would have been great to have on the go. And I for one would have given it a chance. And there you have it, everyone. Those are just some of the games that I personally believe would have had a bright future on the PlayStation Vita had things ended up differently for it, at least as far as the eyes of the mainstream goes. And I know I'm leaving out such popular choices like Persona 5, for instance, but again, I have to emphasize that I'm going by the PlayStation Vita's hardware limitations on this, and being that it's 2011 tech, I'm not 100% sure if games such as Persona 5 could have run properly on the system. I mean, heck, if you look at games such as Catherine and World of Final Fantasy, those games had to be pretty heavily compressed in order to make it work on the Vita. And considering Persona 5 is a much bigger game than those two, yeah, just saying. But I gotta ask you again, which games would you have liked to have seen on the Vita? I know many of you out there have quite the long list, so let's get cracking. That was just bad. And as always, fellow Vita fans, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It really means a lot to me. Love you all, and I'll see you next time. The following video has been brought to you in part by all of these wonderfully generous people who help make this content possible, including David Ray, Sculpture Tugel TCG, Rodrigo Vera, Larry Anderson, Adam Theory, Aaron Swanson, Mario Cruz, Pierce Sterner, Heston Joseph, Jelle, E-Rock, Kevin Enright, Buzz Sayin, JR, Jared Haddo, Richard Cruz, Kyle Brooks, Joshua Williams, Dennis R. Huggins Jr., Saul Ramirez, Ruben Gutierrez, Adam Sondi, Phantom XRS, BMF, Hero Acer, Reiko Star, Matt Fox, Jace Ballerin, and Neo Arashi. If you would be interested in supporting the channel, check the links down in the description below. I have numerous ways for you to do so in that area. And for those of you who actually did make it to the end of the video, I have a question. Would you like to see me tackle more topics like this? I know they're pretty much just dream lists, but I thought that they made for interesting discussion pieces. Though dream lists might be a tad bit of a stretch, because I did in fact try to put a little bit more logic and reasoning behind these choices. Games that I felt would have been possible to come to our community. Not just like, you know, Kingdom Hearts 3 or something that probably would have been impossible for our handheld. And I have to ask you, fellow Vita Islanders, how many tissues did you all go through while watching this video? I mean, you know, was it more than usual? You are on PlayStation Vita at 2 AM after all. We're crying when you see one of my videos pop up on your subscription feed? is a given.